You followed the rules, you took the oath, and you became a US citizen. But now, under the new DOJ memo released on June 11, your citizenship can be at risk. This isn't fear-mongering. It's a real policy that authorizes denaturalization like never before. In this video, I am going to break down what this memo says, what it means for millions of naturalized citizens, and who could be targeted even years after becoming a US citizen. Because if you thought becoming a US citizen is permanent, you need to watch this video. Hi, I am US immigration attorney Lilian Chukwurah, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the US immigration law system. So what does this memo actually say? Because sometimes we think it says one thing, but it actually says something completely different. So let's talk about what it actually says. On June 11, 2025, the Department of Justice sent out a new directive telling its lawyers to prioritize and aggressively pursue denaturalization cases wherever the law allows. If you watched my video last year where I talked about denaturalization, how there's a criminal part and a civil part, and people in my comments were telling me how I'm fear-mongering and this is not real and it's only in extreme situations. Well, this directive is basically saying, well, wherever you can argue denaturalization, go ahead and do it. So, what does this mean? If the government believes that you lied, that you left out information, or you were ineligible when you became a citizen, they now want to take your citizenship away. And this is not just in extreme cases, because someone in the comments is going to tell me it's in extreme cases. No, there's 10 categories, and in those categories, they are not talking about just extreme cases. The Department of Justice has outlined 10 categories of cases where they want them to target. And this includes people accused of ties to the cartel or gangs, anyone with a serious criminal conviction, even if it happened after they became a US citizen, people accused of fraud, including private financial fraud, and anyone they believe to have got their citizenship through misrepresentation, which can mean a lot of different things. Now, here's the part that most people don't realize. Denaturalization has a criminal law element and a civil element. So the Department of Justice is going after people on the civil side because there is no statute of limitation on the civil side. However, on the criminal side, there is a statute of limitation. They can only do it after so many years. But on the civil side, they can go after people for as long as they find out that they have that misrepresentation or they were convicted of a serious criminal offense. Also, if they're going after people under the civil side of denaturalization and not the criminal side, that means they only really have to prove their case that it is more likely than not that you meet the requirements for denaturalization. On the criminal side, they have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Right? That is why they are choosing to do it under the civil side, because the requirement, the bar that they need to meet in order to denaturalize people will be much, much lower. If it is a criminal case for denaturalization, you have a right to a public defender. However, if it is under the civil side, you do not have a right to a public defender. You will be able to get your own private attorney if you can afford one, but you have a right to an attorney. They're just not going to provide one for you under the civil side. But if it was a criminal side, they would need to provide one for you if you cannot afford one. So yes, even if you have been a US citizen for decades, the Department of Justice can go through the process to denaturalize you if they believe that your naturalization was flawed or that you committed a serious offense after you became a US citizen. And once they denaturalize you, they can now go through the process of deportation. You may be thinking this does not apply to you. You have done nothing wrong. But there is a reason this memo is concerning to immigration lawyers like myself. The categories that they are targeting are broad and vague. So things like good moral character, material misrepresentation, or simply not disclosing something even if you didn't know you had to disclose it, or that it was even a thing to disclose. Those things can lead to you ending up in denaturalization proceedings. So it's really important that you do not just assume that you are exempt from this, because this is broad and it is vague, and they will try to fit as many people into this denaturalization box as they possibly can. Even if it was an honest mistake, the government can now reopen your case, strip your citizenship, and place you in deportation proceedings. They are now having this authority and power given to their attorneys. Now, this is not just about criminals or fraud. It is about setting a precedent where your citizenship is conditional. Even after you have earned it, you have went through the process of getting your green card, getting your citizenship, you have been a good citizen. This will set a precedent where that naturalization is now conditional. So what can you do to protect yourself or your loved ones from being caught up in this? Here's a few important steps that every naturalized person should consider taking right now. The first is to review your naturalization file. Remember, in order to denaturalize someone, they're going to go through your naturalization application at a minimum. They will go through your naturalization application. So you want to have a copy of your naturalization application and everything that went along with it, to just make sure that everything you put in it is accurate and is complete. And you want to make sure that there are no errors, omissions, or flags that could be questioned later. Next, you want to make sure you know what's in your A file. The A file, unlike just your naturalization document, has everything that U.S. immigration has on you. Again, there's going to be parts of the A file that is going to be redacted by USCIS, but the majority of the things that you file is going to be in your A file. So getting a copy of your A file and reviewing it is going to be a very important step in this whole process. You want to know every single form that you have filed. You want to know what decisions have been made. See if there's any notations in your file. Is there any, again, errors, omissions, or things that could be a red flag later that you want to know before it becomes an issue. So getting a copy of your naturalization documents only show what you filed in that section, but getting a copy of your A file is really where the key is, because that will have your naturalization documents and your green card documents, any other documents that USCIS has on you. And also, if you have been in deportation proceedings in the past, it will also be in there. So you want to make sure that you are going through that step and getting your A file. Next, I recommend that you get an FBI background check. You can go to the post office, they can fingerprint you, and you can have your results in a day or less. So you want to make sure you go get fingerprinted, have all your information, so you know if there's anything on your FBI background check that you are not even aware of, okay? Did someone use your name? Is it a similar name and it's showing up on your records? If that's the case, you can reach out to the FBI and try to get those things fixed. So make sure that you are getting a copy of your FBI background check so that you have everything that the FBI has on you. And here's the key though. The reason you want to get the FBI background check and not just like your state's background check, the FBI background check covers the whole United States. So if you have ever been arrested in the US and fingerprinted, it will show up on your FBI background check. And USCIS, when they take your fingerprints and at your biometrics and they do a background check, guess which background check they're using? The FBI background check. So you want to make sure that you're getting a copy of your records and making sure that everything that's on there, right? If you've had criminal history, you want to make sure that everything on there is accurate. Next, avoid making any statements without legal advice or legal counsel. If you are contacted by an officer or an investigator for denaturalization purposes, I need you to know one thing. Shut up. I am so sorry to be so bold, but shut up. You do not have to answer their questions. You do not need to explain yourself. You can request to contact them once you have your counsel present. You do not say a word, because anything you say can and will be used against you. So if you do get that phone call from an investigator, you get contacted by an officer talking about denaturalization, asking you about your immigration history, or asking you questions related to your immigration past, please shut up. Go get a lawyer, tell them what happened, and then they can reach out to the investigator and get that process going. But do not feel like you need to answer questions on that process. Not answering questions is your constitutional right. You are a US citizen until you are denaturalized. So the rights of a US citizen still applies to you. So please do yourself a favor and shut up. And the reason I say to shut up is that even innocent answers, you may just think, oh, I'm just answering their basic questions. Those innocent answers can be misconstrued and used out of context. So you may want to just not say anything at all until you talk to your attorney, and they can then get your answers and figure out if your answer is actually clear or if it can be misconstrued or used against you. And then finally, get legal help early. If you think there's any risk, you had an old arrest, past immigration issues, or something you weren't fully honest about, speak to an immigration lawyer now. Do not wait. Let's analyze your risk factor for denaturalization. The earlier you act, the more options you have. So make sure that you are taking steps to get your naturalization file at a minimum, but I recommend getting that A file, getting your FBI background check, and then meeting with an attorney to review your file, ask you questions, and make sure that your risk level is low, or if it's high, start planning about actually getting in contact with denaturalization attorneys and seeing what the steps would be to hire that denaturalization attorney. Denaturalization is a federal law. It is not immigration specific, so it goes through federal court system. So you want to make sure that you have a litigator that does federal litigation. Okay, the point of this video is to inform you of what could come up. This is not to tell you to hire me, because I do not do denaturalization law. If you come to my office and you're like, I got a letter talking about denaturalization, all I will do is say, hey, here's a referral to a federal litigator that does denaturalization. Okay, so the importance of this video is to give you information so that you know what steps you can take and you can kind of gauge your risk factor for denaturalization. Citizenship is your right, but when policies like this come to play, you want to make sure that you are proactive about protecting your citizenship. Do not assume that you are safe just because you've been in the US for decades. The laws are changing, the rules are changing, and you need to be one step ahead of those changes. If this video made you pause, that's good, because awareness is the first step to protecting yourself and your loved ones. I personally work with immigrants and citizens all day long, and I have seen how quickly these laws and policy changes can swiftly change people's lives. I work with immigrants and naturalized citizens every day, and I know how quickly things can change. If you have concerns about your case, you're starting your immigration journey, or you're worried about something that happened in your past immigration history, do not wait to get help. You can book a free confidential strategy session with me by going to my website, lilylegal.com, and clicking on Contact Us, where you can pick a date and time that works best for you for us to chat. And if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any future updates. Like this video so that other people can find it. And finally, make sure you comment below with any questions or comments you have about this topic. I actually do respond. I'm attorney Lilian Chukwurah. I'll keep you informed so that you can stay protected. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.